Well, hey everybody, it's Chris DeFurio with Keys to the Shop, and welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco, the espresso machine company that you know and love. And if you don't know them and you're new to coffee, this is one of the foundational companies of the coffee industry. They've been making espresso machines by hand in Florence since 1927. So when you've got nearly 100 years of making quality, customer-focused, just highly functional, dependable, beautiful, and innovative espresso machines under your belt, then you know you've earned this reputation. We all have kind of grown up with La Marzocco behind the bar, and that's why I love the company so much. They're very dependable. And their machines, you can look at their machines and the offerings at lamarzocousa.com and reach out to the sales folks, info@lamarzocousa.com, and see what I'm talking about. You've got configurations of lots of different styles and varieties and capacities, from very manual to very technologically advanced, with a lot of automations and helpful features. So whatever your style and need in your coffee bar is, La Marzocco has something that fits your needs. So go ahead and check them out, again, over at their website, lamarzocousa.com, and tell them you heard about them at Keys to the Shop. And I think you're going to love their products. Definitely. I have for a long time. So our episode today is also brought to you by our friends at rattleware.com. So smallwares in the business of coffee is something that you just count on. It is something you think about it when they don't work, and you just count on them when they do work, but you don't think about them. But this is what Rattleware wants. They want to be operating and humming in the background of your business and helping you succeed by being a stable and functional part of your coffee bar. So if that sounds like something that you want your smallwares to do, which is kind of glue everything together and hold it together and be dependable and functional for the daily use of a real coffee bar environment, go check them out over at rattleware.com for all your smallware needs. Great company, great products. I think you're going to be pleased with them. Okay, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about urgency and rushing and not rushing the customer, and the difference between speed and urgency. Let's just dive into this. Really, the title of today's episode is about not rushing the customer. One of the ways you can not rush the customer is by not rushing yourself. Rushing gets you in trouble. When you rush, you're actually doing something, and the connotation of the word rushing is actually that you are skipping steps. You're making compromises. You're playing a dangerous game. You're running downhill too fast. You feel a little bit out of control, and you're being forced, in an uncomfortable way, to go faster. And speed is not always the best thing. Now, we are really renowned in coffee to time how long it takes to get a drink out. Oh, you got to get those drinks out in like under a minute. And you get this drilled into people's heads like they have to be fast. And what you end up with, if that is the one metric that people hear you talk about all the time, they're going to think this is the most important thing. When in fact, the most important thing is the quality of the interaction and the product itself. If it takes a little bit of more time to make a great drink, and you can take an extra second or two to be kind and hospitable, you shouldn't feel bad. But we are kind of programmed to default towards speed at all costs, because we're taught that if we're not fast, we don't get enough people through the line, and they're going to go somewhere else because they too are timing their shots and they have a stopwatch. And if it's 30 seconds too late, they're just going to stop coming to the cafe, and but we're going to go out of business. Customers are not actually that fickle, and I understand why we might be, thinking that speed is the most important, because it can tend to be one of the most tangible, measurable things that we have in the coffee shop. So we can say, yeah, here's the average drink time. And the other stuff is not as measurable, because first of all, you're not the one drinking the beverage. So you don't know for sure that every drink is quality unless you're doing the kind of stuff we've talked about before, which is having a lot of check-ins and, continued education and quarterly menu making tests and things like that. Also, hospitality you can't put a stopwatch on or put a device in the cafe that measures hospitality. So because those things are a little squishier in their own right, we default towards the more hard things like sales numbers and speed of service. And then we end up losing our ability to focus in on the things that actually bring us more sales and actually allow people to be bigger fans of our space, which is not so much the speed, because the people who make bad coffee can be faster than you all day long. They're pulling shots that are shorter because they've got some technology that makes it possible, or they're doing what they can to be fast, and they will beat you on speed. And that's just not the game you want to be in. Now, you don't want to be slow. There's a difference. I'm not saying you should be slow, but I'm saying is that your position of rushing bleeds over into the way the customer feels about your space. If they walk into a chaotic environment where there is this, oh my God, we got to just do it fast, and everyone's freaking out, and they're going to freak out too. They're going to default to the cheapest and easiest drink. They don't want to put the barista out. They don't want to make that staff member feel like, oh, no, now they're ordering something complicated. So the customer doesn't order actually what they want. They order what that can get them out of this pressure cooker that is what the environment that we have actually cultivated for ourselves, that we offer to them in spite of our best efforts in hospitality. No amount of exclamation points used in your onboarding material can make up for the reality of the culture that you've created in the bar when it's operating. So you might talk about hospitality and how we love the customer and customer service. Yeah, but in the actual doing of the business, what we all know actually matters is move the line, go faster, go faster. It's okay. That shot's probably all right. And we compromise, and we just, we count it a success if we're fast. The customer sees that and they say, that's what we have to do. You got to be fast. You got to be efficient. You got to choose something that's not going to, these people are on a razor's edge. Their emotions are just raw. And if we order something that we actually want from the menu, which is kind of false advertising because it says you can totally order the pour over. You can totally order this new signature beverage. But then you look into the eyes of the baristas and you say, they don't want me to order that. I can see the daggers are coming out, and they're like, don't you dare even look at the signature beverage menu. Don't you look at that pour over menu. And they get the picture, right? And so they're like, oh, drip coffee, or just a vanilla latte, right? And that happens a lot. And that position we have of that default of speed and rushing, it's different than urgency. Urgency is a little bit more of a controlled speed and efficiency that is based on how we can serve people in an appropriate, measured, response to their order, versus rushing and speed. Now, how this, beyond the cultural aspect that is observable and tangible, and it transfers emotionally to the customer, we literally will rush the customer too, because in our mind, it's not about just making the drinks go faster, it's about making the line disappear faster. So the customer sees our body language, they see our eyes, they know that they're not welcome to consider their options. And if they do have a consideration about what they're ordering in front of you, you will, and a lot of people do, and I've been that person countless times. Haven't you had time to read the menu, and haven't you been to this coffee shop before? Didn't you think about this before you got up to the register? Come on. We're on the clock here. There's a whole line. We got all these drinks, and you're holding up the line because you didn't bother to look at the menu. And now we're trying to make the customer perform a certain way so that our job is easier. And this is not the hospitality environment and serving with kindness and all these other platitudes we put out there. This is not the thing that we want to be known for. And then we wonder why we're losing margin to other companies that come in, and large corporate behemoths that are not making any bones about the fact that they are fast, and they're doing so fast it doesn't even matter, because things are so laden with sugar and so colorful and crazy and fun. We just want those things super quick. We don't care that it's actually not tasting as good. What we care about is that it's quick, because we've been taught quick. We need to give people enough time at our cafes and not rush them, so that they can actually have time to absorb the difference between our cafe and a different cafe or a corporate cafe. They can actually have that prefrontal cortex engaged and the amygdala disengaged so long enough that they can say, there's something about this place that I enjoy. Now, you're not enjoying yourself if you're in a performance mode and you're fight or flight or freeze as a customer, which is what we inspire in people most of the time when we have these deadpan faced baristas looking at them sometimes with daggers in their eyes thinking like, come on. I had to break up a good conversation with my coworker just to serve you this latte. Ugh, I got to get back to them. This is the kind of stuff that customers see. They say, check, yep, that's it. Better to have coffee at home. Better to just go through the drive-through at a corporate store where I know what I'm getting myself into. I was wrong. I was wrong to have expectations about the specialty coffee place that's local and says that it cares about community and, serving with kindness. It's foolish me. Now, I'm not going to do that again. This is what happens when we rush people at the register. It's when we rush ourselves and when we focus on these wrong metrics, thinking that if we don't focus on them, then we're going to go super slow and lose people. Fact is, we lose people when we are not giving them the opportunity to find their place in our coffee shops. That requires patience, preparedness. Prepare people to receive and welcome people into the space, and don't rush their purchases. Don't herd them down the line just to make them wait at the end of the bar. And you need to make this a conversation between yourself and your baristas too. This is something, again, that if it's not an internal disposition, it's not going to be an external disposition. You're not going to have customers feel that from you unless you and your staff are trained, resourced, communicated with, clarified, excited to serve, hired well, supported, and living that culture that then is transferred to the customer. And so we all feel the impact of the difference your coffee shop has over the others because we gave them enough time to actually receive it as we receive them. So that's what I have to share about rushing and not rushing customers. It's really important, especially if you want to differentiate yourself from your competitors. So let me know what you think. As always, you can reach out, chris@keystotheshop.com, and I will see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break from Keys to the Shop.